Welcome to the Art Lady's home. Today I am sharing with you my newly built rose garden, and this rose garden is about 2.5 months old, and the majority of the plants in this garden are on Fortuniana rootstock. And I purchased these roses from Nelson's Roses in Winter Garden, Florida. They're planted in zones not between zone 9A and zone 9B. I live right on the border in Central Florida of those two zones, and so I just call it 9AB. In my area, we have such poor soil that we have to have roses that are grafted onto Fortuniana rootstock. We can also use some old China roses or old garden roses. Some of those can also be successful. But what I'm going to show you today is the garden, the newly planted roses. And I do have a few in this bed area that are a little bit older, but for the most part, these are just a few months old. These raised brick beds were built years ago, and I amended the soil with some mushroom compost and cow manure. And then over the years, I've just mulched the beds and, switched out plants here and there. But for the most part, this wasn't planted heavily, and the mulch just decomposed and built up over the years. When I planted the roses, I did amend the soil with some more cow manure, and then in each planting hole, I put a few teaspoons of bone meal and some humeric acid in some of the roses, not all of them. And then I also put in some little pellets of alfalfa pellets, the alfalfa horse feed. And when I was digging the hole, I was pleasantly surprised to find a lot of earthworms, so the soil is relatively healthy in this area. After I planted, I top dressed the soil with some Scott's Osmocote slow release fertilizer. Now I'm going to share with you some of the roses that I think are doing exceptional so far. These are a pink double knockout rose, and these are just cheap Lowe's roses. And I purchased 3 of them just to use as filler plants in between some of my better roses. And this is a version of a peace rose. And this is Belinda's Dream. And this is the Nelson's rose, and it's called Beverly. The Distant Drums Bud, which is quite beautiful. And then this has been open for a couple days. And then this one just opened this morning. And a climbing lavender crush. This was purchased from Walmart, and it's just an inexpensive bare root rose. So I will be growing it in a pot for a few years, and then I'll experiment with putting it in the ground. And this is Abraham Darby. This is Josephine Land. She grows really well here in Central Florida. This is a popcorn drift rose, and it is showing a lot of promise. It's doubled in size, and it's been blooming nonstop for about 2 months. I've had this Rose Clotilde Superb for about 3 years, and this is her biggest flush yet. She's also on her second flush of the season right now. In this back area, I have 2 Princess Charlene de Monaco climbing roses, which I really love. And she's doing really well. This one has an amazing scent. It's called Pope John Paul II. And that is Josephine Land. This is Perfuma Bliss. This rose was purchased at, I believe, Home Depot, and I'm going to experiment with planting this eventually in the ground. I'm going to give it a year or so to develop roots, and then I will plant it in the ground. This is a double pink knockout, and I purchased 3 of them to try them in the front garden. This is a climbing Peggy Martin, or also known as the Katrina Rose, and this is a 3-year-old plant. She was planted a year or so before I retired, and this year she has bloomed the best she has ever done. Now I'm going to take you over to the left of the garden, and it's right past the driveway, and these plants are in a new garden bed, about a month old, and they're doing really well despite the month of April being a severe drought in Central Florida. The large white lily is a crinum lily, and we transplanted this about a month ago, and we're using it as a backdrop for the rose bushes. So these stay green all year, and the flowers are almost year-round too. We placed some of the crinum leaves on the ground, layered that, and then placed 4 to 6 inches of composted horse manure, and then on top of that 4 to 6 inches of shredded bark, and that's what made the raised beds. And this is an own root basketball, David Austin. This is a bare root James Galloway, a David Austin climbing rose. This will eventually be placed into a raised brick planter that'll be next to the garden arbor. Right now it's 2.5 months old. So far it's been a very strong plant, quick growing, exceptional blooming. I love the ruffly, frilly buds and blooms. James Galloway. And this is an own root carding mill by David Austin. And this is 2.5 months old, bare root rose. This is the lady gardener. The tree in the center here is it's a purple flowering crabapple. So hopefully it'll provide a little bit of afternoon shade to the plants below. This is a generated image of what the crabapple would look like full grown. This is colorific. Beautiful two-tone colors. This one's been out for a few days. And this one's getting darker. It seems like the sun makes them darker in color. But I'm not sure. I still have it. I've only had it for a few months, but that's what I'm seeing. In the center of this flower bed, I have a Louis Philippe, and I'm pretty impressed with how much he has grown in just a month that I've had him in here. And this is the second flush. When I bought him, he had some flowers on him, and then I trimmed off all the buds that had faded, and now this is the second flush after a month. And it's about doubled in size here. So eventually it'll be 6 to 8 feet tall, so it'll go taller than the crinoline lilies and fill in this whole center space here. Here is a before, just shortly after we started, and then we removed the boxwood hedges. We transplanted the crinum lilies. After we trimmed the lilies, we used their giant leaves to smother the grass, so we made a real thick layer on top of the grass, and then we put composted horse manure on top of that layer, and then we used mulch for the last 4 inches. I hope you found this video helpful in showing you what a new flower garden would look like, and a little bit about the process of how to build one yourself. If you would like to see more of this flower garden, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, because I will be updating you on the progress. And I'm also going to be experimenting with different kinds of roses, planting them in the ground in Central Florida.